My sister looked me dead in the eye and told me to hide my fortune from her fiancé. She claimed my wealth would ruin her perfect wedding dynamic. I nodded, playing the impoverished sibling. But when I discovered the devastating financial secret his family was hiding, I didn't just break her rule, I bought their entire livelihood out from under her. Growing up in suburban Chicago, my older sister Vanessa was the sun around which our entire family orbited. If Vanessa wanted something, the earth practically shifted on its axis to deliver it to her. She was loud, fiercely competitive, and possessed an insatiable need to be the most important person in any room. I, on the other hand, was the shadow. I was Harper, the quiet, observant younger sister who preferred coding in the basement over cheering on the sidelines. My parents didn't mean to play favorites, but Vanessa's demands left little oxygen for anyone else. As we transitioned into adulthood, our paths violently diverged. Vanessa pursued a career in high-end event planning, a job that perfectly suited her need to micromanage aesthetics and rub elbows with the local elite. She lived slightly beyond her means, driving a leased Mercedes and maxing out credit cards to maintain an illusion of upper-crust wealth. I took a different route. I lived in a modest two-bedroom apartment, drove a decade-old Toyota Camry, and worked 90-hour weeks building a cybersecurity firm with two college friends. For 7 years, we survived on ramen and adrenaline. Then, last year, the unthinkable happened. A major Silicon Valley conglomerate bought our firm. My equity buyout? Just north of $42 million after taxes. I didn't buy a yacht. I didn't buy a mansion. I quietly invested the money, upgraded to a slightly nicer townhouse, and kept my mouth shut. Money changes people, but more importantly, it changes how people treat you. I knew exactly how Vanessa would react if she found out I was a multimillionaire. She would see it as a personal attack on her superiority. But secrets have a funny way of surfacing. It happened 3 months before Vanessa's wedding. She had recently gotten engaged to Liam. Liam was a public high school history teacher, a genuinely kind, salt-of-the-earth guy who had the patience of a saint. I honestly didn't know how Vanessa had landed him, or why he put up with her constant need for validation. Vanessa had dropped by my townhouse unannounced, claiming she needed my aesthetic opinion on floral arrangements. In reality, she just wanted an audience to complain to about the caterer. While I was in the kitchen brewing coffee, she decided to snoop around my home office. "Harper?" Her voice rang out, sharp and tight. I froze. I walked into the office to find her holding a thick, cream-colored envelope from my wealth management firm. I had carelessly left it on my desk after reviewing my quarterly portfolio returns. Her perfectly manicured nails gripped the paper so hard her knuckles were white. "What is this?" she demanded, her eyes darting from the document to my face. "Is this a typo? Why does this statement have your name on it, with a balance of $38 million? There was a suffocating silence in the room. I took a deep breath, realizing the gig was up. "It's not a typo, Vanessa. The buyout went through last year. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it." Her face cycled through a terrifying spectrum of emotions: shock, disbelief, sheer envy, and finally, a cold, calculating anger. "You're a millionaire," she whispered, as if the words physically tasted bitter. "A multi-millionaire. And you let me pay for dinner last week." "You insisted on paying, Vanessa," I replied evenly. "I try to keep things normal. I didn't want the money to change our relationship." She tossed the paper onto the desk, her chest heaving. She paced the length of my small office twice before stopping to point a trembling finger at me. "Listen to me, Harper," she said, her voice dropping to a low, dangerous register. "Liam does not know about this. His family does not know about this, and they are never going to know." I furrowed my brow. "Why?" "I'm not going to flaunt it. But why the strict secrecy?" "Because Liam is insecure about money," she lied seamlessly, though I didn't know it was a lie at the time. "His family is completely blue-collar. They're struggling. If he knows my little sister is sitting on a tech empire, he'll feel completely emasculated. It will ruin the dynamic of our engagement. He needs to feel like the provider, and my parents and I are already tiptoeing around our own financial stability, so he doesn't feel overwhelmed." She stepped closer, invading my personal space. "For all intents and purposes, you are still Harper, the struggling computer nerd. You will drive your old Toyota to the engagement dinner this weekend. You will wear something off the rack. You will not offer to pay for a single thing, And you will absolutely not breathe a word of this fortune to Liam or his parents. Am I understood? I looked at her, entirely bewildered by her logic, but I didn't want to be the cause of any friction before her wedding. Fine, I agreed, wanting to defuse the bomb. My money is my business anyway. I won't say a word. She gave me a tight, triumphant smile. Good, keep it that way. I thought she was just being her usual dramatic, controlling self. I had no idea that her demand for my silence was a smokescreen for a much darker, incredibly cruel manipulation she was orchestrating against the man she claimed to love. The engagement dinner was held at an upscale steakhouse downtown, a venue Vanessa had insisted on, despite Liam's gentle suggestion of a more casual, intimate setting. I arrived in my dented 2013 Camry, parking it between a row of luxury SUVs. I wore a simple navy dress I'd bought years ago, playing the part of the modest, middle-class sister perfectly. When I walked into the private dining room, the contrast between the two families was painfully obvious. My parents were dressed to the nines, sipping expensive martinis and holding court. Vanessa was practically sparkling, a massive diamond weighing down her left hand. Then there was Liam's family. Diane, his mother, looked exhausted, though she wore a warm, resilient smile. Her dress was neat but dated. Robert, his father, was a quiet man with calloused hands, who looked profoundly uncomfortable in his suit. Liam's older brother, Connor, sat rigidly at the end of the table, nursing a water, and looking like he carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. "Harper!" Liam greeted me with a genuine, booming voice, pulling me into a hug. "So glad you made it." "Wouldn't miss it," I smiled. As we sat down, Vanessa immediately took control of the conversation, loudly discussing the exorbitant costs of the floral arrangements and the string quartet she had just booked. Every time she mentioned a price tag, I saw Robert and Diane subtly flinch. Liam tried to steer the conversation toward safer topics, but Vanessa was relentless. Halfway through the dinner, I excused myself to use the restroom. When I walked out into the quiet, carpeted hallway, I noticed Connor pacing near the coat check, frantically whispering into his cell phone. I know, Connor was saying, his voice cracking with desperation. "I asked for an extension. Just 30 more days. The bank is completely shutting us out." "No, we can't tell Liam, not tonight. It would destroy him." I stopped walking, blending into the shadows of an alcove. "We need 80,000 by Tuesday just to stop the foreclosure," Connor continued, rubbing his temples. "And the rest of the medical debt. I don't know, man. We might lose the shop. We might lose the house. I have to figure it out." He hung up, leaning his forehead against the wall, taking shaky, ragged breaths. I felt a pit form in my stomach. The shop he was referring to was Mitchell and Sons Manufacturing, a small, multi-generational custom parts factory that Robert and Diane had run for 40 years. Liam had mentioned it proudly in passing. I quietly slipped past him and returned to the table. For the rest of the evening, I observed the dynamic with new, sharper eyes. I watched how Vanessa looked at Diane and Robert. It wasn't just condescension, it was something colder. After dinner, as people were lingering over coffee, I saw Vanessa pull her two bridesmaids who had joined for dessert into a corner. I pretended to look for a dropped earring near their table, my ears straining to catch their hushed, giggling conversation. "Did you see what his mother wore?" One of the bridesmaids sneered quietly. "I know, it's pathetic," Vanessa scoffed, taking a sip of champagne. "But honestly, it's playing out perfectly." "Are they really going under?" the other friend asked. Vanessa smirked, a look of pure malice crossing her face. "Completely. Robert's medical bills from his heart surgery last year drained their savings, and they took out a massive, terrible loan to keep their factory afloat. They are drowning." "Does Liam know?" "He knows they're struggling, but not how badly. He thinks they just need a little time," Vanessa said, twirling her engagement ring. "They applied for a bridge loan through a private lender my dad knows. I told my dad to make sure the lender rejects them." My blood ran cold. I practically stopped breathing. "Wait, why would you do that?" her friend asked, sounding mildly shocked. "Because," Vanessa whispered fiercely, "right now, Liam is so attached to his family. They are his whole world. If they go bankrupt and lose everything, they'll have to move out of state to live with Diane's sister in Ohio. Liam will be completely cut off from them. He'll have no one to rely on but me. He'll move into the house my parents are buying for us, and he'll finally understand that I am his family now. He won't have a choice but to do things my way. I felt physically sick. Vanessa wasn't just vain. She was a predator. She was actively sabotaging Liam's parents, an elderly couple dealing with the aftermath of heart surgery, just to isolate Liam and force him into a state of utter dependency. She wanted a husband she could completely control, and she was willing to destroy a family's legacy to get him. That was the real reason she demanded I hide my money. It wasn't about Liam's pride. If Liam's family knew they had a multimillionaire sitting at their dinner table, they might ask for a loan. They might find a way out of the trap Vanessa had so carefully set. I walked out of the restaurant in a daze. I sat in my beat-up Toyota for 20 minutes, my hands gripping the steering wheel. I thought about Robert's calloused hands, Diane's tired smile, and Connor's desperate phone call. Then I thought about my sister, sipping champagne and laughing about ruining their lives. I reached into my glove compartment, pulled out my laptop, and connected to the mobile hotspot. Vanessa wanted me to play the quiet, impoverished sister. She wanted me to sit back and watch her destroy good people for the sake of her own twisted ego. Not a chance. I opened up my secure banking portal. I had $38 million liquid and zero patience for my sister's sociopathic games. It was time to go shopping for some debt. First thing Monday morning, I sat at my kitchen island and opened my laptop. The sun was barely rising over the Chicago skyline, but I was already on a secure video call with Harrison Cole, the senior wealth manager at the firm handling my tech buyout. Harrison was a meticulous, ruthlessly efficient man who wore bespoke suits and treated my money with the reverence most people reserve for religious artifacts. "Harper," Harrison said, adjusting his glasses as he peered into the camera. "It's 6 a.m. To what do I owe the pleasure of an emergency meeting?" "I need to buy a manufacturing company's debt," I stated flatly, taking a sip of black coffee. "And I need to buy a massive portfolio of medical debt. I want it done quietly. I want it done legally. And I want it done by Friday." Harrison didn't blink. "Send me the details." I spent the next hour explaining the situation. I gave him the name of Mitchell and Sons Manufacturing, the names of Liam's parents, Robert and Diane, and everything I had overheard Connor saying in the restaurant hallway. Harrison's fingers flew across his keyboard, pulling up public financial records and credit filings faster than I could track. Within 45 minutes, he had painted a bleak, terrifying picture of the Mitchell family's financial ruin. "It's worse than you thought," Harrison murmured, sharing his screen. "They are hemorrhaging capital. The father's heart surgery obliterated their liquid savings, and the business took a massive hit during his recovery. To keep the lights on, they took out a high-interest bridge loan from a predatory private lender. They are officially drowning." Harrison brought up a spreadsheet summarizing the exact figures that were threatening to destroy Liam's family. "Total liabilities are sitting at roughly $440,000, Harrison noted, leaning back in his leather chair. "If we factor in legal fees and penalties, let's call it an even $500,000. "Pocket change," I said coldly. "Buy it." "Harper, just to be clear on the legal mechanics," Harrison cautioned, raising a finger. "I can use a blind shell corporation, let's call it Aegis Holdings LLC, to purchase the commercial debts from Apex Financial and the bank. Medical debt is even easier. Hospitals sell collections for pennies on the dollar. But once we own this debt, what do you want me to do with it? Refinance it for them at a lower rate?" "No," I replied, my voice steady. "I want you to draft a formal, legally binding letter of forgiveness for every single cent. Wipe the slate completely clean. Pay off the mortgage arrears, dissolve the bridge loan, and obliterate the medical collections. I want Robert and Diane to wake up on Friday morning owing absolutely nothing to anyone." Harrison smiled, a rare, genuine expression. "Consider it done. I'll have the legal team draft the acquisition papers immediately." For the rest of the week, I played my part flawlessly. I attended dress fittings in my faded jeans, drove my battered Camry to vendor meetings, and listened to Vanessa gloat. Her psychological warfare against Liam was escalating. Every time Liam mentioned his family, Vanessa would put on a mask of deep, fake sympathy. "I'm just so worried about your parents, sweetie," she cooed one evening while we were tasting wedding cakes. "If they lose the factory, they'll have nothing. But don't you worry. My parents are buying us that gorgeous 5-bedroom house in the suburbs. We'll be completely fine. We can build our own life. Just us." I watched Liam's jaw clench. He looked exhausted, the dark circles under his eyes betraying sleepless nights. He felt entirely helpless, just as Vanessa had planned. She was systematically isolating him, preparing to swoop in as his only savior once his family was forced to pack up and leave the state in disgrace. She had no idea that while she was picking out buttercream frosting, my lawyers were quietly dismantling her trap. By Thursday afternoon, Harrison sent me a single encrypted text message. Aegis Holdings has officially settled all accounts. Letters of total debt forgiveness have been sent via overnight certified mail to the Mitchell residence and the factory office. The bomb was armed. Now, I just had to wait for Vanessa to detonate it herself. The rehearsal dinner was held at the Oakwood Country Club, a venue that reeked of old money and exclusivity. Vanessa had demanded the largest banquet room, decorated with cascading white orchids and towering crystal centerpieces. She wore a custom silk gown, looking every bit the triumphant queen surveying her conquered territory. I arrived in my standard-issue cheap navy dress, taking a seat near the back. The atmosphere at the Mitchell family table was strangely electric. When Robert, Diane, and Connor walked in, they didn't look like a family facing impending homelessness. They looked shell-shocked, yes, but there was a lightness to their steps that hadn't been there at the engagement dinner. Connor kept looking at his phone, shaking his head in disbelief, while Diane was openly weeping tears of joy into a napkin. Vanessa, utterly oblivious to the shift in their demeanor, was busy clinking her champagne glass to command the room's attention. It was time for the speeches. She glided to the microphone, her diamond ring catching the chandelier light. She spoke at length about her and Liam's perfect love story, making sure to highlight how much her family had contributed to the wedding. Then, she adopted a solemn, tragically sympathetic expression. She looked directly at Liam's parents. Family is about supporting each other through the darkest times, Vanessa projected smoothly, her voice echoing through the opulent room. I know that Robert and Diane are going through a profoundly difficult season right now. Life can be so unfair, and financial burdens can tear people apart. She paused dramatically, letting the humiliation sink in. The entire room went dead silent. Liam turned pale, visibly horrified that Vanessa was airing his family's private financial ruin in front of 80 wealthy guests. But Liam, Vanessa continued, turning to her fiancé with a predatory smile, I promise you, no matter what happens to the factory tomorrow, no matter where your parents have to move to survive, I will be your family now. My parents have graciously provided us with a beautiful home, and you will never have to worry about struggling again. We are your future. It was a masterclass in manipulation. She was publicly castrating his family's legacy while elevating herself as the ultimate savior. Liam stood up, his fists clenched, ready to stop her. But before he could speak, Connor pushed his chair back. The scraping sound echoed loudly against the hardwood floor. Actually, Vanessa, Connor interrupted, his voice shaking with a mix of adrenaline and raw emotion. You don't need to worry about the factory, or my parents moving. Vanessa's fake smile faltered for a fraction of a second. Connor, please, there's no need to be brave. I'm not being brave, I'm being honest, Connor shot back, stepping into the center of the room. He pulled a thick stack of legal documents from his inside jacket pocket. We got a certified package this morning from a corporate law firm. Every single debt my family owed, the medical bills, the factory mortgage, the bridge loan was bought out by an anonymous holding company called Aegis. Connor looked at Liam, tears streaming down his face. They forgave it, Liam. All of it. The letter says the accounts are settled in full, with zero balance owed. We aren't losing the factory. We aren't losing anything. A collective gasp rippled through the country club. Diane sobbed loudly, hiding her face in Robert's shoulder. Liam looked like he had been struck by lightning, staring at his brother in utter shock. Vanessa's face drained of all color. The mask slipped completely, revealing the cold, calculating panic underneath. She gripped the microphone stand so hard it wobbled. That's impossible, Vanessa stammered, her voice shrill and entirely unscripted. Aegis? No, that can't be right. My dad spoke to the private lenders himself. He made sure they were going to reject your bridge loan extension. You were supposed to default tomorrow. The silence that followed was deafening. It was the kind of heavy, suffocating quiet that only happens right before a disaster. Liam slowly turned to look at Vanessa. The blood had left his face. What did you just say? He whispered, his voice dangerously low. Your dad spoke to the lenders? You tried to force my family into bankruptcy? Vanessa realized her catastrophic slip of the tongue. She began to backpedal frantically. No, Liam, sweetie, you misunderstood. I just meant. She meant exactly what she said, I announced. I stood up from my table in the back. All 80 pairs of eyes snapped toward me. I walked slowly down the center aisle, my cheap navy dress suddenly feeling like armor. Harper, sit down and shut up, Vanessa hissed, her eyes blazing with panic. I don't think I will, I replied, stopping a few feet away from her. I turned to Liam. At the engagement dinner, I overheard Vanessa talking to her bridesmaids. She orchestrated this entire financial crisis. She told our dad to use his industry contacts to block your parents from getting a loan extension. She wanted them to go bankrupt, lose the factory, and move to Ohio so that you would be completely isolated. She wanted you entirely dependent on her and her money. You're a liar! Vanessa screamed, pointing a trembling finger at me. Liam, she's jealous. She's a broke, pathetic loser who has hated me our entire lives. How would she even know anything about high-level corporate debt? I reached into my purse and pulled out a sleek black folder. I handed it directly to Liam. I know about corporate debt, Vanessa, because I'm the one who bought it, I said smoothly. I looked at Robert and Diane, offering them a gentle, respectful nod. I sold my cybersecurity software company last year. The holding company, Aegis, belongs to me. I used a fraction of my buyout to purchase your debts and forgive them. Your factory is safe. Your home is safe. You owe nothing. The entire room erupted into chaos. My parents were on their feet, my mother clutching her pearls and my father turning a dangerous shade of purple. Vanessa looked as though the floor had vanished beneath her. You? Vanessa shrieked, her voice cracking into a hysterical pitch. You paid $500,000? You told me you wouldn't touch your money. You promised me you'd stay hidden. I promised I wouldn't tell Liam about my money, I corrected her coldly. I never promised I wouldn't use it to stop you from destroying innocent people just to feed your narcissistic God complex. Liam didn't look at me. He didn't look at the crowd. He was staring at the folder in his hands, reading the legal summaries, the bank transfers, and the irrefutable proof of Vanessa's betrayal. He slowly closed the folder and looked up at the woman he was supposed to marry in less than 48 hours. Liam, Vanessa pleaded, tears ruining her expensive makeup. She reached out to touch his arm. I did it for us. I just wanted us to have our own life, without the dead weight. Please, you have to understand. Liam flinched away from her touch, as if she were radioactive. We are done, he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried absolute, unbreakable finality. The wedding is off. Don't ever contact me, or my family, ever again. Liam turned his back on her, walking straight to his parents. He wrapped his mother in a tight embrace, clapping his father on the back. Connor grabbed the legal documents, and without another word, the four of them walked out of the banquet hall, leaving a stunned, echoing silence in their wake. Vanessa collapsed into a chair, burying her face in her hands, her perfect evening shattered into a million unfixable pieces. My parents rushed to her side, glaring daggers at me, but I didn't care. I turned on my heel and walked out the double doors, breathing in the cool, crisp night air. In the aftermath, the fallout was catastrophic for Vanessa. With the wedding canceled mere hours before the ceremony, my parents were on the hook for nearly $80,000 in non-refundable deposits. The social humiliation in their elite circles was absolute. Gossip spreads like wildfire, and everyone soon knew exactly why the sweet, beloved high school teacher had abandoned the bride at the altar. Vanessa was forced to move out of her luxury apartment and into my parents' basement, her perfectly curated life reduced to ashes. As for me, I finally traded in my old Camry. I bought a sleek, sensible SUV and continued running my new ventures. A few weeks later, I received a handwritten letter from Diane and Robert inviting me over for Sunday dinner. I went. It was loud, chaotic, and filled with genuine laughter. Liam and I eventually became good friends, bonded by the bizarre, dramatic fire we had both walked through. I lost a toxic sister, but in the end, my money bought exactly what it was meant to: freedom, justice, and a family that actually valued the truth. If you enjoyed this insane story of family betrayal, secret fortunes, and ultimate karma, hit that like button right now. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss out on more crazy, real-life drama stories. Have you ever had a toxic family member try to control your life? Share your experiences in the comments below. I read every single one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.